Now today started like any other typical day for a 27-year-old real estate investor and his son, Jack. We head on over to a rental property a tenant just, moved out on. And a lot of you have been asking for specific examples of how much money this property has cost us since we first placed a tenant. And today, I've pulled every single receipt on this property for the last 67 months that this property has been a rental. That means I'm going to walk you through exactly the mistakes I made and the decisions we'll be making today. Now, it helps to know that we bought this property in March 2014. I mistakenly thought that I've owned this property longer than I actually have, but it was exactly March of 2014 when I looked at the records, and we bought this for $385,000. Since this was our first rental property, we spent $32,000 fixing it up and adding a fourth bedroom. There wasn't a wall originally where the second bath is off the kitchen, this wall. So we threw up a wall and created a fourth bedroom, which helps us get more rent for the property. Now, because we got this property for significantly below market value, after we put the $32,000 into it, we essentially boosted our net worth by $130,000. And since we had already owned our first house, which we bought below market value, we had doubled our net worth. Because we bought these properties right, we bought the wedge deals I always talk about on this channel or show you how to buy and help you analyze in our private live streams in the real estate investing course. Lauren and I could have sold both of these properties, and within 18 months, our net worth would have gone from $18,000 and no property ownership to selling 2 properties and having a net worth of over $250,000 thanks to buying right. To me, this goes to show that anybody can do this, but anyway, we put $32,000 into this rental property. Here's some pictures of what the property looked like when we went to rent it out. It kind of gives you a good feel as to how we remodeled it into the rental grade property that it is. First things first, it's always extremely important to place high quality tenants to prevent any kind of disaster tenants from destroying your property or not paying. The worst and biggest risks in real estate are damaged real estate and vacant real estate. Usually with high quality tenants and concepts known as tenant leverage, which we teach not only in the investing course, but are going into massive detail on in the do-it-yourself property management course. When you have tenant leverage, you usually don't have to worry about damage. However, sometimes small and minor things can slip through the cracks, and that's where it's very important to be diligent when you're doing your inspections. For example, when I walked up to the property, it looks okay, but when I try to use the garage door remote, the garage doesn't open. Now, I'm familiar with ground fault circuit interrupters and I've installed electrical panels before, so I'm going to do some basic diagnosing myself and we'll see what's going on. Something else to know about the outside of this property is it actually doesn't have sprinklers, which can be a little bit annoying, but it would cost us around $3,500 to install sprinklers. If a tenant was willing to pay us $20 in extra rent because they had sprinklers installed, we might make about $240 per year in extra rent, which would work out to maybe 6.8% on a return on our money. But worse, it would probably take about 15 years of increased rent to actually pay for the sprinklers, which that doesn't make too much sense since there's a good chance in 15 years we'll probably have to replace some of the pipes and sprinkler heads anyway. On the flip side, here's a water softener. Tenants in this particular area pretty much require one, otherwise the water's too rough and the soap doesn't suds up without it. It's basically just a big salt tank.
Water softener.
Now, this machine costs us about $72 per month as a rental. And I'll tell you, I hate renting things. Here's an example as to why I hate renting things. If I installed a unit for about $900 and the tenant provided their own salt as part of their lease agreement, I'd save that $72 every single month. Now, that means this machine would probably pay for itself within the first 13 months. That's a much better payback period. In addition to that, an extra $72 per month is a pretty nice rent boost. And after those 13 months, I'd be getting an extra $72 per month in net rent. Now, to add salt to the wound, no pun intended, the system already needed a $144 repair back in August of 2018, so that more frustrates having a rental. Not only were we renting it, but we had to pay for a valve repair on it. It's one thing if you rent something and they cover everything. It's another thing if they nickel and dime you and you have to pay the rental fee. So this is honestly motivating me to start shopping for a water softener again, which I teach in the real estate investing course how to get about 25 to 30% off on these water softeners with some special discounts that I set up with course members in the real estate investing course. Now, so far though, I'm pretty satisfied of the outside. I'm only upset that the garage door isn't opening yet. I do notice that the chimney cap is missing and there's a satellite dish installed, which both of these things are a little bit of a bother. I can't stand having satellite dishes installed, and tenants usually install them without our permission. Guess what happens though? The tenants turn off their service, they leave the satellite dish, the next tenants come, they install their own satellite dish, and then before you know it, my property's got 4 or 5 satellite dishes on it, all from different tenants, and guess who has to remove them all? Me. Now, something else to know while I'm out here. In December of 2015, or about a year and a half after we placed our first tenant, we had to replace a furnace. But we didn't replace it until 3 service calls happened. So in total, we spent about $2,223 over 4 trips and service calls to replace a furnace. The furnace company told us they suspected it was due to a power surge, which can happen in these mid-century neighborhoods. Basically, one part just breaks after another, which can be a sign of a power surge. So I ended up installing this funky looking thing under our electrical meter here. It cost me about $200 for the material and around $112 to install this what's called panel surge protector. I think it's a little bit of self-insurance on the property. Oh, and while we're looking at the outside of the property, it's important to know this about the roof. Now, this is that particular house where the day I bought this property, a roofer told me, Kevin, you need to replace this roof right now. It's got 3 layers on it, it's a disaster, it's squishy in certain areas. Instead, in 2017, we spent about $2,000 replacing the ridge caps, and that's it. As you can see, it's just rained a lot. Everything's bone dry so far. But what I would like to do is these protrusions coming through the roof, it's a nice cosmetic trick to just spray paint them black or bronze or whatever, just to get rid of sort of that crusty look they have. So yeah, I ended up spending $2,000 tuning up the roof in 2017. The problem is the roof is still old, so this is definitely a risk factor that I'm still keeping an eye on. The good news is it's been raining for weeks and there haven't been any complaints of a leak on the inside. I'll tell you though, spending $2,000 is a whole lot better than spending $11,000 for an entirely new roof when it's not yet necessary. Instead, I could throw that money into more real estate or stocks if I want. Now let's start heading inside, and on the way to the inside, you might actually notice some of these dual-paned windows here. These dual-paned windows were fortunately installed by the prior owner, which is another great element of getting a wedge deal. However, in 2018, we did have to spend about $110 replacing one of the window sashes, which keeps the window balanced when you open and close it. Oh, and pro tip, remember to take a lot of photos when your tenants move out and when they move in. It's very important to document the condition before and after, and it's worth paying for the extra iCloud storage. On that note, dozens of existing course members have been emailing me asking about the do-it-yourself property management course and why it's pricier than the other courses. That course, which we're putting together right now, is actually being put together by the expertise of not just myself, who's been a real estate broker for 10 years and a property manager earlier in my career, but my wife, who's been a property manager for 10 years, and my mother-in-law, who's been a property manager for 35 years. She's a straight-up boss when it comes to handling tenants, maximizing profit, and minimizing problems. So you're really getting the knowledge of 3 people in this course, and because of that, the curriculum keeps growing far and beyond what we even have listed on the online description page for it. But anyone in the real estate agent sales course or the investing course already knows that I'm a big fan of over-delivering. Anyway, welcome back inside. As you can see, the flooring's been stripped. Also, our painter accidentally used the gray color scheme on the fireplace, which the entire house has a beige color scheme, so we're gonna have to paint that white. Though it does look a lot better than what it looked like before. So here's the scoop. The carpet was in pretty decent shape, and we were thinking of keeping the carpet. This is where we could have gone in 3 directions. We could have cleaned the carpet and just rented out the property again right away. This would have been great because we would have been able to really minimize our vacancy, kind of like what we did between the first times we rented it. Our first tenant moved out September 2nd of 2017, and our second tenant moved in September 3rd of 2017. We had 1 day of vacancy, and in that 1 day, we had a painter come in and touch up paint, and the prior tenants already cleaned the carpet before they moved out. That way, when it came time for tenant number 2 to move in, because tenant number 1 properly cleaned the property before move out, the property was ready to be re-rented with basically 0 vacancy. Call it 1 day's worth. Keep in mind, every day this particular place is vacant, it costs us about $100. Now, the other option would have been replacing the carpet, which would have cost us around $2,500, and that would have been completely done in 1 day, which is not a bad option. Now, even though we were leaning towards going in the carpet direction again, much like the decision we made the first time when we didn't have a lot of money to properly floor the property, in this case, we decided to go with a waterproof luxury vinyl plank throughout the entire property. So that way we can get rid of the damaged linoleum in the kitchen and bathrooms, and we figured, hey, why not just have one consistent floor throughout the property? The last thing you want is a designer telling you you need 7 different types of checkered flooring throughout a house. It's just not cool. Now, even though the flooring is costing me about $8,000 with new 4.5-inch baseboards and this luxury vinyl plank, my expectation is we'll be able to rent this property for at least $75 more per month, if not even $100 more per month. That means replacing this flooring will net me an additional $900 more per month, or about an 11% ROI on this floor. Now, it'll take almost 9 years to pay for this flooring, but my expectation is this flooring will last 20 years and might actually encourage a tenant to stay in the property longer. Unfortunately, tenants staying in a property longer is really hard to measure. It's kind of when that lease renewal time happens. You're wondering, oh, is the tenant gonna stay? Are they gonna move? Well, sometimes tenants can look and go, we're sick of living in carpet, we're going to move. A flooring change like this might actually induce them to stay an extra year, which I can't really put a value on now. I'm just confident that this is a step in the right direction. I'm just not as confident about doing those sprinklers, though I'm pretty dang sure I'm gonna be doing that water softener. Now, regarding the rest of the inside, the tenants did a pretty decent job overall, though they said they couldn't clean the windows because it was raining and they only cleaned the inside. Which it's helpful to know this isn't just some random expectation we have. There was a specific provision in this specific lease agreement that the tenants agreed to up front, which said the tenants would professionally clean the windows and tracks upon move out. Now, it hasn't exactly been raining every day, but when I did a quick little test of the cleanliness of the windows on the inside on various different windows, let's just say the windows weren't cleaned on the inside, and neither were the tracks, which the window tracks are the parts that usually need the most cleaning. In fact, over time, little rocks can scratch the tracks and metal and just damage the windows, so it's very important that the proper cleaning is done to the windows. Now, this is also the property where tenants installed drywall in the garage. There was a lot of confusion in the last video we made regarding this drywall as to why Lauren would be upset that the tenants made an improvement without her permission. Well, one of the reasons Lauren was upset was because without Lauren's permission as the property manager, there's no way Lauren can verify that work is done correctly. And I hate to say it, but when I look at this 3/8 thick drywall, I can't help but suspect that one of the reasons the garage door opener no longer works is because when they uninstalled this electrical system and reinstalled it, something ended up breaking. This now means we have to hire an electrician to come out and diagnose the problem, pinpoint exactly where the problem is, and if it's concluded that it's ultimately the tenant's fault, which I hate to say, but I suspect it is, the tenants are going to have to pay for that electrician. Had the tenants asked for permission up front, the work could have been properly verified at the time of install, and they would have actually protected themselves from us making the assumption the work they did caused damage. Now, obviously, we're still getting an electrician involved to verify this, but this is why, as a tenant, even if you're making an improvement, it's just a really good idea to ask your landlord first. All right, so now let's take a look here at the spreadsheet showing the exact amounts that we've spent on the property and the dates we've spent them on. And then I've got one more little surprise that I want to show you. So I've already mentioned most of these, but all in, over the exactly 67 months, we've spent $6,607, which is just under $100 per month in repairs. This is pretty consistent, and this is exactly why I teach in the real estate investing course, always set aside $200 per unit in reserves. Because we follow our own advice, this means we have an extra $6,700 that we could spend now without investing more money. If we spend more, it just means we're putting a little bit more of an investment into the property. Obviously, whatever security deductions we make will just go to curing whatever the tenant damaged, so I'm not even really considering things like additional cleaning or that electrical work, because that's going to be the tenant's responsibility, most likely. Now, before I show you the last surprise, let's just go through the numbers of the work we're thinking about doing now. Right now, my goal is to spend about $1,000 on touch-up paint, about $3,200 on labor for the flooring and baseboard, and about $4,600 for the floor material and baseboard itself. We'll spend about $200 for the chimney cap and the satellite. That's some miscellaneous repairs like repairing the doorbell, replacing the smoke detector batteries, and just making sure everything is fit and ready for the next tenant. This puts us all in at spending $9,500. Now, unfortunately, that is $2,800 more than we have left in reserve. But even with the water softener, this means I'm only taking $3,700 out of my pocket towards getting an ROI boost on the water softener of essentially $72 per month after the first bit. And I'm going to be able to rent the property for more immediately with that more expensive and high quality flooring. Also, I didn't pay for this. The property's reserve paid for the vast majority of these upgrades because we've owned it for the last 67 months, which means I'm barely coming out of pocket to generate a really nice return on my investment in upgrading the water softener and the flooring. Now, the last thing that really upset me was I think the tenants, I hate to say it, tried to trick me. Take a look at this here. When you first look at the oven, it actually looks pretty clean. You might look at the glass on the door and say, oh, it looks clean. You might look at the bottom on the inside, looks clean, sounds good. But it's not until you actually stick your head in the oven that you notice how dirty and greasy the sides and back of the oven are. What's also sad is if you look at the spreadsheet, we just replaced this stove brand new 6 months ago. It's also pretty obvious that the tenants use this kitchen a lot for cooking because, I hate to say this, but look inside the garbage disposal. This thing looks like it was used every single day, especially since it was brand new not that long ago. So anyway, there might be some additional deductions here, but overall, the tenants did a great job, and I don't expect there to be a lot of deductions at all. Overall, this is a great property, and I hope you've learned something in this video. Feel free to follow me on Instagram, smash the like button, and until next time.